Hello there, my beautiful creatures of the beyond and your fantastic internet. I have some nice new surprises for you guys. So I accidentally discovered some new techniques and I want to share them with you. So I was working on this hourglass and I was trying to make this edge look interesting. Right now it's ugly, I know, but I was just prototyping. And you might look over here and you see these scratches. And you might think to yourself, well, it's just an inverted clip. And normally I would say yes, but I'll show you something cool. This is currently our glint, right? Then we have a clone main mask. So this is a clone of this main mask. And then we have the interior, which is this color, whatever. Now, what happened here? First of all, I have created the controller, but I have related it to this gray background. And unfortunately, I wasn't very careful when I did it. So when I hide this gray background, everything hides here in the controller as well, because the clipping mask for this is this gray background's clone. So it's a clone in a clone in a clone in a clone. Yeah, it's gonna be complicated. But if you can follow along, I'm gonna show you something cool. So, first of all, I've created a clone of this. Then I have caught everything inside here. So basically, what is inside here? Well, we have this main mask, which is this white. It's exactly the same shape as here, but I copied it over here. Well, initially they were overlapped and then I moved the entire clone. So the entire controller, sorry. So I've made this one white. And then for this one I have applied a mask. So in this case we also have a mask. So as we know, masks can only work if they're white or black. So if I'm gonna take this, I don't know, let's take this dark blue, and then I take this white, for example. If I go like so, and now I set mask, it's going to display only where the mask is. Obviously, it's not helping us very much because right now we can't control the color of the mask and so on. So for that, I usually do clone, Alt D. I just move this up, and then I select this too, and I set a mask. And now with the controller, I can set up how much of the color I want over here. Well, I can also move this controller. So right now, this is displaying blue because this color here of the rectangle is blue. I can make it whatever color I want. But now, if I want to reduce the opacity of this, obviously I can reduce opacity or alpha by itself. Let me demonstrate. So I can reduce alpha, I can reduce opacity, but I can also control it via the lighting. We've done this before, so it's not a big deal. So the more it becomes black, the more transparent it becomes. That's how masks work. Now, one thing that we haven't talked about, ever, never, is what if we, sorry, not this. Ignore the small errors here, visual errors, because this is 1.4, the beta, so it does have a few small issues. Okay, so I have selected this. Now, oh come on, go away. So right now we are on this. We can apply, come on, let me apply it. We can apply a power mask. Now, what does a power mask really do? Initially, it's not gonna do anything. But if we do this, add background to mask, it's going to change the background, which is this this rectangle. It's a bit complicated to explain on this regard because it's kind of merging the two masks together to create this shape. And it doesn't work like traditional masking because obviously this color is red, so it shouldn't be red, but it's creating inside here a clone of this. And it's weird. So basically it's taking the background, making it white and putting it on the background. But we can also invert this. Sorry about this. Now obviously this is not gonna work right now because when we invert something, it has to be black. So if I turn it to black, now this works correctly. Now this might seem kind of silly of doing it this way, but if I apply the background like this and I hide it like this with the inverse mask, I create a hole in here. But check this out. Now I can control it with the alpha, I can control it with the opacity, but more than that I can control it with the color here. And there is one more thing that this does, which I found quite interesting. We have a background color and opacity, so we can change this and we can kind of select a different hue. It's a bit finicky to get right, but it's interesting. Although keep in mind that it's doing kind of freaky things. So if I turn this one to a white, I don't know why did this change. You see there is an overlap of something. Kind of tricky, as I said. So yeah, it's basically the color for the background, because right now if I'm changing this, because technically this should be just black, so if I put it at 50%, you're gonna have transparency of 50% of this background. So this color applies to the rectangle here that's red, but it's actually applying to the clone that's inside here. I know it's complicated, but it just works. And the inverse is quite, again, finicky because you have to know what you're doing. So again, try to not push it too hard. I'll go with the white. So you see, you also have another level of control. So if I want to bring the full background here, I can play with the opacity, and if I want to go like this, then I only need this one. So it's a very powerful tool, in my opinion, this power mask. This is why it's called the power mask. Now, yeah, it's getting confusing and difficult to control if you don't know what you're doing, and if you don't have this separate and this is a clone. So you're gonna get in trouble. Now, let's get rid of this and let's dive inside here. And let me show you why this is a very powerful technique. Now, inside here we have this, well, let's call it hierarchy. So I have this path which has this mini controller over here. So the mini controller creates this was black. So let me show you why it's black, because the mini controller is hidden. Now this is an interesting thing. If I was to hide this, this would hide the clone inside here. But if I create, and I'll demonstrate better, because this is not working very well. So let's say we have this red, and then we have this black over here, but let's make it white initially. Okay, so let's actually put it in the center. So we select this, we're gonna create a mask, right? And this is a standard mask. Perfect. Now, if I'm gonna bring back this, apply the power mask. Now we can invert. Oh shoot, I forgot to. Damn it. I forgot to create the clone. Okay. So if I'm gonna select this, move it up. We'll select this and this. Now we can set as a mask. And of course, if I'm gonna play again with the inverse, oops, not this one, this one. And I'm gonna do the inverted, obviously I have to change the color to black. Perfect. So technically these scratch marks are exactly this circle that I'm doing here. Now in this path, so what I wanted to demonstrate. So right now, if I'm going to hide this, it's going to hide the entire clip, the entire mask. But if I'm going to put this into a group and hide only the group, which hides the object inside the group, but not the object itself, this remains active. So only if I hide this, does it hide its clone, which is really, really neat if you have a controller like this and you need to put it on the side. So this is kind of a hack, but it works and it's really nice. So this is exactly what I did here in this experimental. I've created this hider group. So basically when I hide this, the group here is intact. Only if I hide, because I cloned this group. And why did I clone this group? Because maybe I want to add more paths inside here. So for example, if I'm taking another path, let's say like so. If I have to put it inside here, you see, it automatically creates it here. If I do another one, if it lets me. Oh, it does not let me, interesting. Yeah, well, there are some limitations to everything. Okay, so if now I hide it again, this, oops, didn't put it in the right thing. Now if I hide it again, you see, this remains here. And it's really cool because if I want to go with the node tool and change it, see how awesome it is. It's actually changing the clone, which is inside here, but I'm actually manipulating the parent, which is here. So this is really nice. But check this out. This has a blur of 10, okay? So let's remove the blur to have it more clear. Now, if I'm gonna push this as a blur of, I don't know, 20, or let's leave it at 10 again. You see, these ones do not change the blur. Only if I go inside my main controller scratches, and if I apply a blur to them, then does this blur apply here. So we have a ton of control over how we manipulate certain things on how they show up. Now, if we look over here, we see that this applies. So if I would to hide this background, which unfortunately I've created it here. If I would hide this and I would remove the blur on the scratches right now, see? I'm in the controller, we cannot see it because the controller is over here. And I can do the same for this path. Bam. Obviously, I can do a full global blur. Ah, but it's actually not changing. Interesting. So the blur does not affect this one, although this blur is a bit more inaccurate. I don't know, for some reason it adds opacity instead of, or I don't know, a gradial opacity, which is another interesting accident, but let's see how much we can do. It's not working, Toman. Well, this one, if I'm gonna blur it, this blurs differently, but again, it's a bit tricky. So you can easily get lost into this, but I don't blame you. I also get lost in this. Now, let me show you another cool thing. So I know I've been kind of a mean guy when it came to the clipping group. So let's say that this one is, I don't know, this dark blue, and this is whatever, no, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna give it the normal color that we use. And now, usually when you do this, and you set clip group, well, inside here you have a special group called clip. So if I were to move, now again, clip groups are very powerful, but you have to know what you're doing with them. But at the same time, they're kind of annoying. So if I move this out, bam, the only clip thing is this rectangle. If I want to move the this inside this and put it like so, bam. But the moment I move this outside and there's nothing in the group, well, you know what happens. Now, what if I tell you that you can make an even more powerful, easier to control group, but it's only going to apply to the main shape. Although there is kind of a drawback to this, but we'll discuss it in a moment. So let's say I'm gonna draw this, I'm gonna transform it into a path. And right now I'm going, let's make it a bit zero on the eyes, let's make it a clone. Now look what happens. If I select this with the clone, and if I try to set clip, it's not gonna work. Now don't ask me why, I have no clue. Probably it's a technical limitation. There is a logic behind all of this, so obviously not everything should work out of the box. And this is like trying to mask yourself with the clone. But what if I told you it's possible? All we have to do is just group this, and now I select this, and now I can set the clip. Bam. And it's technically the same thing to some degree, only to some degree. Because I'm not grouping this, I'm not cloning this. In the case, and I'll explain how this works exactly. So, in the case, oh, let's do that too light. In the case of this, when I set the clip group, what happens is actually that this is cloned inside here. So if we move everything outside of this clone, obviously there is nothing to be displayed inside the clone. But in this case, this one is not grouped inside here, it's not cloned inside here. Although I could make it like that, that's not a problem, but it doesn't serve our purposes. And there is a little trick I want to show you here. So right now we have this inside the group. This is the clone, this here is a reference of this one. So this one, when we cloned it, we masked it using this. So obviously if I'm going to modify this, we're not gonna see any changes, right? So right now, if I'm gonna make a new thing and I'm gonna put it, let's say inside here, you see, it's not changing because the group is not cloned. Only this is cloned. So I can even move it out here. Perfect. But what if I told you I can also move this one up here? And I can get rid of this group. So right now I only have a clip mask with a clone that clips itself. Which is really nice. This is a simplified clip group. Well, it's not really a group, but it's really nice if you want to have kind of a traditional mask in a way that you can control it with the path instead of the mask. Obviously, you can't control this because it's a clone, and we know that clones can't be edited, but this one can. So the clip of the path is of the path itself inside the clip, which is kind of a paradox if you think about it. It's like we're breaking the laws of physics here. Not really, but whatever. But it's really cool. So if you want to simplify the group clipping to not have such a complex hierarchy in here, and I mean still group clips are powerful and you can do a lot with that, but let's be real here, most of the time you're not gonna drop more than one path inside your clone group, because doing that, well, it's doable, but I don't know, it's not really rentable on the long run, unless you really make like a special architecture with an assembly, and that maybe then there's something there, but even so I wouldn't bother too much. Simplify your work. It's much better when you simplify because you understand how to do it. Now in this case I have overcomplicated it, and I know that, and initially I wanted it to make something controllable in how I blur the edge here but keep the sharpness in here, but then I realized it doesn't work really nice, and obviously this glint is way too fat. I need to thin it up a bit. But if I hit my head on the keyboard a few more times, maybe I'll get it right for the next episode. We're gonna attack this beautiful hourglass. Okay, let's remove this. So we don't have things that we do not need on our canvas. So yeah, I really wanted to share this technique because maybe it inspires you to do some really wild things for yourself. Okay guys, stay awesome, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Mwah! See ya!